Although I've explained many strange aspects of the FNAF lore and its intricacies, I've never gone in-depth on the forces that actually power the main selling point of the franchise, the animatronics. Since I'm always talking about big ultimate timelines or shocking secrets, I decided it would be worthwhile to take a look at the driving force of 99.9% of the stuff that goes on in this franchise, Possession. Today, I'm going to explain all the weirdest aspects of Possession in the Five Nights at Freddy's games, so strap in because I'll be answering the burning questions fans have had since day one. Why are these things possessed? How can something become possessed? And more. The first time we got a glimpse of Possession in the franchise was in the very first installment, Five Nights at Freddy's. Right off the bat, it's very clear that the animatronics you're going up against aren't acting normally, and by the newspaper clippings you can sometimes see in the halls, it seems pretty obvious that these things are possessed by the souls of 5 children murdered at a Freddy's location. You see, the FNAF universe works very differently than our one. Apart from a huge difference in technological advancements, with the world of FNAF being way ahead of us in that sense, there's another factor at play here, the power of emotion. In the world of Five Nights at Freddy's, it's apparent that very strong emotions can influence the environment around their source. While this is true to a very limited extent for our universe, FNAF takes this to an entirely different level. The strongest emotion is agony, generated by extreme amounts of pain, and this is what most likely led to the possession of the animatronics we see in FNAF 1. The FNAF books state that metal is a very strong conductor of emotional energy, and the animatronic endoskeletons are the perfect way to ensure a ton of this energy is flowing through Freddy and the gang. As well as that, there's some classic Restless Soul stuff going on, but agony is the most important factor for Possession. But there's more to cover apart from just this, so let's go into specifics on what forces power the world of Five Nights at Freddy's. Obviously, the word agony has a real definition. Extreme and generally prolonged pain, intense physical or mental suffering according to dictionary.com. So of course agony in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is going to be produced by these feelings, but what is it really? Well, it's an emotion that remains long after the person who experienced it passes, but the emotion can spread into nearby objects and as I stated, it seems to favor metal ones. Intense pain, suffering, anger, and sadness are stronger than happy emotions, and therefore leave more of an effect. Because of this effect, agony is the strongest emotion of them all, and was therefore theorized by Dr. Phineas Taggart to be able to manipulate and mimic life itself. This hypothesis was the beginning of his agony experiments that we see in the epilogues or stingers of the Fazbear Frights book series, and soon after it was these experiments that brought about his end. Agony's physical form is a black, dense liquid, and it might be similar to the dark remnant we see in FNAF AR, which works in a similar way. But that brings up the following question. If agony allows a form of possession and remnant also allows a form of possession, then what's the difference between remnant and agony? Again, like we did with agony, we'll start with the definition of a remnant. A remnant is a remaining, usually small part, quantity, number, or the like of something, according to dictionary.com. So in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, it's a small part of a soul, specifically the souls of the kids who died in the scenario we're talking about. So when a person dies near a metal of some sort, the conductivity of the metal allows for the soul to stick to it. Remnant is destroyed by immense heat, but if you don't heat it too much you can melt it down into what is essentially a liquid mercury. We learned this from the Scooper blueprint in FNAF 6, which states, when heated, no observable motion. Keep in a heated tank at sustained temperature. Substance should be malleable but not more. There is a possibility that overheating might neutralize the effects permanently. And from the fourth closet, where William Afton acts like a mad scientist messing with Remnant. The fourth closet also gave us a look at how Remnant affects those injected with it. If you are injected with it, it can save your life, but you are able to contact the spirit inside of the Remnant. Souls can also affect the dreams and thoughts of people they are close to or are haunting, as proven by the Tales from the Pizza-Plex story Alone Together. Physically, Remnant looks like a light-colored metallic liquid, and in special delivery it's a weirdly sparkling glowing orb. Basically, agony is pure emotional energy, and remnant is more like the spiritual part of the equation that enables active possession. If you can't already tell, remnant and agony are very similar, so which of these forces make up what animatronics? Well, this can be figured out with two very simple questions. Firstly, is the animatronic or object made of metal? And secondly, what does the animatronic or object look like? These two factors allow for a very quick understanding as to what has agony and what has remnant. For example, the original 5 animatronics from the first game have remnant, but the shadows from the second game are likely made of pure agony. While both remnant and agony can give something a semblance of life, agony is much more violent than remnant, and they can both form separately from one thing. So, which FNAF characters only have agony in them? I believe the list of characters made up of pure, unfiltered agony consists of only 3 characters. Those 3 characters are Shadow Freddy, Shadow Bonnie, and the Tangle, or the Blob. So, how did each of these get so much agony in them? Well, I think that the shadows are both connected to the pain felt by 2 very specific characters in the franchise. Since I believe the reason Cassidy, or the Vengeful Spirit, is so vengeful is because they were spring-locked in the Golden Freddy suit, I think this was an attempt by William to recreate what he saw the puppet do to the 4 kids he had killed earlier, stuffing them in suits to make them possess the mascots. This explains why we don't see the puppet stuff the 5th kid into Golden Freddy and he just appears. This of course caused Cassidy to go through so much pure agony that it created the dark agony reflection of their new form, Golden Freddy. This agony became Shadow Freddy. Shadow Freddy is also an afton side as evidenced by FNAF 3, making it a dark reflection and a polar opposite of what Cassidy is. I'm not really sure who Shadow Bonnie is meant to represent, but it's possible that it's a reflection of the pain felt by Charlotte after her death at the hands of William Afton. So, where does the Tangle fit in? Well, the Tangle, as explained in my previous Blob video, which you should totally check out by the way, is filled with agony from multiple sources and is a pure tangle of black liquid-like wires. This is our most recent form of agony in the games, and likely a huge deposit of pure agony from across the entire franchise. All that aside, agony was first introduced in the Fazbear Frights books, and I wanted to do a little section that covers how it is used in those books. The books have many solid points with agony included, and some that might be referencing it but are just vague enough to feel risky to quote. The ones that I'm going to be covering though definitely have agony in them. In To Be Beautiful, the items that make up the dark scrap version of Sarah are likely filled with agony after what happened to her in that story. This is seen by the mannequin torso found by the Stitch Wraith in the Stitch Wraith Stingers, and they comment that a loco teen, Sarah something, disappeared a week before, and the detective assigned to the case had several eyewitnesses who claimed the girl turned into garbage right before their eyes. This shows that the piece of garbage used for the chest was a mannequin torso, and it's almost definitely filled with agony because that's what the Stitch Wraith is after. So, what other big things from the Stitch Wraith Stingers have agony in them? Well, there is the plush strap from the story Out of Stock and the Stinger at the end of Fetch, and Fetch himself, along with the Ella doll, an unnamed endoskeleton, a doll that becomes part of the Stitch Wraith's head, and more in the 1:35 AM Stinger. With so many items filled with agony and it being the big thing in the Fazbear Frights books, what was the major use for it? Well, it was used majorly in the experiments by Dr. Phineas Taggart to create the Stitch Wraith itself. The books then followed an insane plotline ending with an Afton virus, a giant 15-foot tall trash rabbit, and a girl being replaced by a sentient doll. I wish I was joking, these books are really weird. But beside that, almost every Fazbear Fright story uses agony in some way. So what does this have to do with the games then? Well, Scott Cawthon himself said some of the stories in the Fazbear Frights books were, and I quote, directly connected to the games and some not. So we could use the information that agony seems to exist in all of these stories to help us confirm it indeed exists in the games and help us get on the right path. In general, most of the animatronics we see in FNAF are likely powered by souls in the Remnant rather than agony. This includes the classics, the Withers, possibly the toys, and some of the fun times, specifically Circus Baby. While Remnant is the main bulk of the possessive stuff in FNAF, agony is equally important, and it's likely what allows Remnant to form. So, in conclusion, agony and Remnant are interesting and important parts of the FNAF lore, but they aren't always the clearest or easiest to understand. This video might have confused you more because these topics are in fact confusing, but that's just how the FNAF lore is. Hopefully though you came out of this with more knowledge and a better understanding of the nature of possession. If you want to know more about how agony and the Remnant might connect to the Blob or the Tangle, then go check out my video on that. I also have recent videos on some other aspects of the lore that touch on this subject, so go check those out as well. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It's really helpful and is absolutely free. With that friends, remember, keep on theorizing and never stop overthinking.